So today we're going to look at solving by completing the square. So you're still going to have like your x equals whatever, whatever. Usually it's 2 answers, just like last time, okay? So here's kind of some steps. If you forget or need to come back for your notes or for your homework, then you can look at that. So I'm going to do example 1 with you here. So when it says complete the square, we're trying to make the ABC part into like a perfect square so it factors out nice and pretty, okay? So I'll show you what I mean by that. So what we're going to do, let's go ahead and label these ABC. So x squared is our a, so our a would be 1, b would be 8, and c is going to be whatever they haven't given it to us yet. So this is how you find the constant, is what it's going to say. Find the constant that you're going to add to both sides. Constant just means regular number, okay? So first you want to find half, and I'm going to say, it says of 8, but you want to find half of b. Okay, so this time b is 8, but it's not always. So what's the easiest way to find half of something? Divide by what number?
2.
Yeah, divide by 2. Okay, so they wrote that here. So 8 divided by 2 gives us what? 4. So you do that. So we did that. And then square the result of step 2. So that means like exponent of 2 or times it by itself. So 4 squared, so I'm going to do 4 times 4. What's that give us? 16. All right. So we're trying to make this c into a nice regular number there, okay? So we're going to add 16, whatever number you found, you add to the end of that and make that your c. All right, and why it's called a perfect square, so you don't actually have to work these out. I'm just showing you where this, like this next part you don't have to work out. I'm showing you where it comes from. If we did do the x, so just watch here, don't have to write unless you want to. If we did the x, well, a times c, 1 times 16 would be 16, and they need to add to 8. All right, well, what 2 numbers multiply to get 16 and add to 8? Tori, do you know what 2 numbers multiply to get 16 but add to 8? 4 and 4. Okay, so when this number is the same, that means perfect square. So my little parenthesis here would be x plus 4 squared. Because if you remember, that's the same as, x plus 4 times x plus 4. We can just write it x plus 4 squared. All right. So that we will continue to solve like we did last time, but that's really the new part. Okay. So let's try this here. So it says, find the value that makes the expression a perfect square trinomial. So you're going to find that constant for c. Okay. I'm looking for c. So first I take half of what? Half of 40 equals 20. Step 2 would be to square 20. So 20 squared. What's 20 times 20? Colin, what is that? Type that in if you need. Huh? 20 times 20. What would that give us? Calculate. So that's 400. All right, and then we will add that to the end in that C spot. When we get to the next, we're going to add to both sides. So this number would be 400. Okay. So this has the 5 on there and the 14. We got to combine those like terms. But since we said we're trying to find C to make it a perfect square, 14 currently isn't. So we have to move 14 to the other side, okay? So I'm going to write that here. Move 14. How would I move 14 to the other side of that equation? How would I move it to the other side?
5 plus 14.
Close. What's the opposite? Minus. So if I minus 14 from 5, we do get negative 9. So I'm going to say, I'm just going to write some steps here to the side for you. So move constant, which is your regular number, okay, to the right. Okay, now we're going to find that nice number. So I'm going to write this to the side so I have some room. So if I have x squared minus 10x equals negative 9. I'm going to leave this space here. I'm trying to find that number, okay, that makes it a perfect square. So this is where you use what we just did. So we got to do half of what number? A, B, or C? A, B, we're looking for C. So which number do I find half of? B, so the negative 10. Make sure you keep that negative with it, okay? So if I divide negative 10 by 2, or take half of it, what does that give me? Negative 5, okay? And then square your answer. So if I do negative 5 squared, anytime you square a negative, it's going to cancel out, right? So you can really just think like, so square 5. What's negative 5 squared give you? Tori, what's negative 5 times negative 5? 25. Good. All right, and that 25, add number, so I'm adding 25 to both sides. Okay, so I'm going to add it here, so that makes it a perfect square, and I add it over here. Okay. So once you have that, then we kind of solve like we did before, but the factoring part is going to be much easier because we already found the number. Okay, so I'm going to say, so we move all that, we factor. All right, but so take a quick pause and just look up here. Since we made this what's called a perfect square, that means it's going to be x and x equals negative 9 plus 25. I do have to simplify. It gives me 16. All right, if it's a perfect square, so that's close. I need two numbers that multiply to get positive 25, but add to negative 10. Okay, it is always going to be this number that you found earlier, the half that you found. Okay? And what's the same as x minus 5 times x minus 5? I can write that as squared. All right. So after that, so we're going to solve by factoring, or by square rooting like we did last time. Okay, so we got to get rid of that squared. So square root this side, square root that side. So the left side just takes away the squared. Do you guys remember putting the plus or minus? You could. I usually split this here, so I'll write this below, and I do x minus 5 equals positive 4, x minus 5 equals negative 4. And then how would I solve that? What do I do? What do I do to solve that left one for x? Add 5. Whoops. Sorry. So if I add 5 to 4, I get 4 plus 5 is 9. Good. And then the other side, if I add 5 to negative 4, I'm going to get 1. Okay? So we have those two answers. Okay, so kind of combining a lot here today. Honestly, this is the hardest method of factoring, and for some reason they put it as like not at the end. So the next methods will be a little bit easier, but this is kind of the hard one. All right, example 3. So a little bit tougher here. You actually don't have any that are quite this tough on yours, so I'm going to show you like the first step. You're just going to divide by -4 because that's your greatest common factor. Oops. All right, so if I divided all that down, I'm going to get 32 divided by -4 is 8, well, -8, and then -72 divided by -4 is -18, positive 18. Okay, so here is the part we need. We need to find what is this constant that they're adding to both sides to make it a perfect square. Okay, so I'm going to do half of what number? Colin, what number is the B here? Looking here. So A, what number is B? Good. Make sure you got that negative. Good. And I only need the 8 technically. So half of -8 equals what? Lane, what's half of -8?
-4.
Good. All right. And then you take -4 and square it. If you're typing that in your calculator, make sure you put parentheses. So -4 squared is still going to be the same as 4 squared, which is what? 16. So I'm adding that to both sides. All right, now remember from here to here, they're just factoring that quickly because what is going to be that number? That number in there is the half that we found. So what should that number be? X minus what squared? Tori, what was the half number that we found? Half of -8 was what?
4.
-4. My screen got a little off for some reason. So they already have a negative actually, so we'll just put 4. Now this side I gotta simplify. So -18 plus 16. What is that gonna be? Close.
18.
Good. All right. Now watch close here. This part is kind of confusing, but it's actually pretty simple once you see it. So I would solve this by square rooting. So I square root here and here. Okay, but I need you to grab your calculator and type in this side. So I'm going to type the square root of -2. Okay, so you should get where it says error, okay? That is because the square root of a negative number is not really something we can do right now. It's going to be like an imaginary number, and we're not getting into that this year. So what we would say is it has no solutions. That's the little symbol. You can write no solutions also, either way. So what you notice here then, when that right side is a negative number, and we take that square root, don't think like, oh, I did it wrong, I need to take the negative off, okay? If it really is a negative there, then that is no solutions, okay? So I don't want you to just be like thinking you did it wrong. That is possible for it to be like that. Okay, let's check our homework. All right, so today for homework, I want you to start with the delta math because that is easier. You may need to get the code, and I will have you set that up here in a second, but it's delta math, and it says when you log in, it'll say find, complete the square constant.
Aren't we done with delta math? Or was it something else?
I don't know.
I thought we were.
Yeah.
So do that, and that's 5 points, okay? And then those ones, you're just finding that number, like half of a b and then square it, okay? You're just like finding that part, I believe. Then in the book, you'll do 10 through 14. Please do this on a separate sheet of paper, okay? This is not enough room at all to do it. Okay, so if you like give me this, I'm gonna assume you cheated, so make sure you do it on a separate sheet of paper. And so you'll get 5 points for each. So your homework's pretty much always 10 points. Today is just split into 2. So 10 with you. So start off with the same way we did your delta math. You're gonna find that number, okay? actually, I'm going to go ahead and move this first, actually. So you're going to move the constant or the C. So step 1, move C to the right. So if all I do, if I'm moving negative 16 to the other side, I'm going to add it, right? That's just going to change the sign and add it. If it's 0, it's just adding it to 0, okay? So make sure you write this with me. And I always leave a blank here because I know I'm trying to find that number and it kind of helps me not forget about it, okay? So 0 plus 16, bring that down. Colin, I give you a piece of paper to work it out. All right, now do what you did on your delta math. So I'm going to find, that constant. So what they were asking about. So I do half of what's B? Yeah, okay, so half is 3, right? And then you square it. So 3 squared equals 9. Okay, and I add that to both, so add the constant, and this is the part that's tough to remember, to both sides, okay? So like left and right. So if I add 9, it's just 9, right? But if I add it to 16, it's going to be different. So let's simplify that. All right, so I'm going to say you simplify. So factor, actually the left, simplify the right. Okay, so what do I mean by that? If you factor this, it's going to be that half that we found. So what was the half number that we found? Half of 6 was what? 3. And it was a positive or a negative 3? Positive. So I put x plus 3 squared because I'm trying to make a perfect square, which means like little expression times itself. So I factor that side. So typically that's where we do the x, but you guys don't have to because we already found that number. Okay? What does this simplify to? What's 16 plus 9? Does that give us? 25. Sometimes that's going to come out to a nice perfect squared, sometimes not. All right, now you solve like we did last time, so it's called solve by square rooting, okay? So like I said, these are long because I think these are the hardest ones and they gave these two kind of in the middle. All right, so if I square root both sides, Tori, what's that leave me with on the left side? Yeah, square root it. Nope, don't type it in. It just takes, if it's the opposite, it just takes this away. So now it's just x plus 3 equals, now the square root of 25, what's the square root of 25? 5, but what do we say is wrong with just regular 5? Plus or minus. And then I always split this into 2 to help me see it. So first equation would be x plus 3 equals what? What's our first option? Plus or positive 5. And then the other equation would be x plus 3 equals our negative 5. All right. Colin, how would we solve for x there? How would we move 3 to the other side? Exactly. So it's going to give us 2 answers. So 5 minus 3 is 2. So you guys just finish off this other one and get that answer. So almost all these are going to have 2 answers. I'll leave these directions here if you want to take a picture or just have a quick example to look at. Like I said, they're kind of long, so you only have 5. You will definitely need to do them on a separate sheet of paper.